Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the way. I'm Zach. If we've never met, hey.
And I'm Michelle, and if we've never met.
I was just thinking, like, I just said if we never met, but I probably haven't met most people who are watching, which is kind of sad. Maybe we'll do should we do like a meet and greet sometime soon? Did I just promise something that we can't promise?
I don't think you're that important, Zach. I don't think, yeah.
Let me just cut this whole beginning.
It's all about Jesus, not about us. So.
That's right.
Anyway, if you've never met me, I'm Michelle. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, this is Michelle, and hey, we've got another exciting episode. We're here live on set at Alpha.
Whoa.
Filming the new series. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. But for now, let me introduce you to my good friend, Jack Layzell.
Hello, guys.
Jack,
hey.
Welcome, bro. So excited to have you hear a little bit about your story. We were just chatting, saying like we've probably known each other almost 3 years at this point. But I've never actually like heard your story.
Yeah.
So I'm really, really excited to dive into that.
Yeah.
And you're so welcome here, bro.
Oh, thanks. I'm super excited. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Come on. Hey, well, I thought we would just start. You just told us as we were setting up the cameras that you first said yes to Jesus when you were 3.
Yes. So I heard.
What?
I heard the download from my mum this morning. Actually, she was giving me the insight, and my parents used to be. We used to go to like these conferences and camps called New Wine, and the little groups that you go to as a kid it's called like Pebbles or Boulder Gang. They're all like related after like different stones and stuff. So I was in Pebbles and rocking it up, and they said, would you like to become a Christian? Would you like for Jesus to be your forever best friend? And apparently I said yes. But because my parents were there, serving at all the festivals and stuff, we had week A, B, and C. So week A, gave my life to Jesus. And then 2 weeks later, week B, also gave my life to Jesus again. So I just wanted to confirm that twice. So, but it was cool.
Double down.
Exactly.
Salvation.
Just
That's
so,
awesome.
It was super, super clear to everyone. And my mum was saying this morning that even though I was so young, I definitely knew, she said I knew what I was doing. I knew like the gravitas of what I was doing.
Wow.
So that was really cool. And then just kind of grew up in Christian home my whole life. So through highs and lows, we've always felt like God has definitely been around the family, real like foundation of our family, which has been like such a blessing. And I feel super, super privileged to have that. That was probably the first moment that, although I can't really necessarily remember it, to be honest.
Yeah, fair.
I love how you had to actually ask your mum about that.
Yeah.
So sweet.
So sweet. Was there ever a point like since then when along your journey when you kind of like weren't passionate about pursuing Jesus, or were you kind of always like pursuing him for a relationship with him after that? Yeah,
like I never had, I think fortunately I've never had that like off the rails moment, which is great.
Praise the
So always been like super passionate about it. But I particularly remember times, so we moved to London in 2010, was part of HCB, which is like an amazing time, especially with the youth group, like just like loads of kids, loads of people my age going for it. And we were at Focus one year, which is their summer festival. And I think I just remember being in the worship in the final night, like on the big top, the whole week's been sort of ramping up to it. And they're just singing the worship, and I get up there, I just remind myself of the song that they were singing. It was just come out.
Checking the document that your mum sent you. That's so good.
Check the facts.
I love that. It's a live fact check.
Yeah. So the song that they were singing was "Set Apart" by Tim Hughes, and I think it just come out with like the Worship Central guys. It was amazing, and I just had this realization that like it says "set apart for the one we love," and that I have a responsibility to be set apart for him. Not just like this is something that is recognized with my family or like my brothers or my parents or my friends and stuff, but actually so that's something for me specifically. yeah, and that was probably the moment that I really like grabbed faith by the horns, and just like took it. And yeah, that was really powerful for me.
Wow.
In my story, yeah.
How old were you at that point?
So I think I would have been about 13 or 14 potentially. And I just knew that this is something that God's got a plan for my life, and I wanna lean into that. I don't want to drift away. And what was amazing was the way that people in church like kind of came around me at various different things, various different youth leaders, church leaders, just sort of shared life into my life. They from quite a young age, I got quite a few prophetic words about stepping into leadership and things like that. And I guess I had a choice really of, do I choose to step in and use that for like God's glory, or do I choose to just like recognize that that's a thing, but slightly ignore it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where I just thought, no, I want to use this for God's glory. I guess I'm quite a matter of fact person, so I just like, yeah, cool. If I'm gonna do that, then
All in.
I'm all in. Let's go for it.
So
It's
valid.
really exciting.
What was that like that journey of saying, okay, yes, God, and then getting those prophetic words of like, oh, you're meant to be in leadership, all of that. And how did that develop from that point?
I probably felt a bit of an element of excitement around that. And there was something that I probably had to grapple with for a little bit, in terms of actually it's not about me. It's more to do with how can I serve God. And so if he's given me if anything that he's given me is to glorify him, not to glorify myself. And so there's definitely something that I wrestled with a couple of people, just around pride, potentially, even from a young age. And that was probably as a kid, maybe a little bit too prideful. And so now having a bit more understanding of how things work is exciting. But I think there was also an element, and that probably came from a fear of pressure I put on myself, that I've got to step into this. And my parents had this role in ministry, which was like such a gift and so amazing and super powerful, but also like living up to that expectation in certain ways. And so, yeah, just through wrestling with people, chatting with people, prayer, through God just doing a work in me of realizing actually my own life is of value, and it's not reflective of something that they've done, which has been so powerful and really grounded me, I'd say, in an amazing way. And I used to have this note on my pinboard at home, and I used to worry a lot about the future. Basically, it's like, okay, if these words have been spoken over my life, what on earth does that look like? Because where do I start? I feel like there's this sort of pressure to deliver, and it just says like, don't worry, God has a plan. And it was really simple, and it was based off of, I think it's Matthew 6, where it's also like, do not worry about your lives. So that for me was just such a constant reminder, reassurance. God's got a plan for my life. I want to step into that, but I don't necessarily need to know what that looks like day to day.
Yeah.
I remember being at that age, coming out of high school, and I guess even just like nearing the end of high school, and just thinking about like, what am I going to do? And everyone's always asking you like, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do? And I think, yeah, it's kind of tough, but the Lord does have it in his hands. And I heard recently it's more about who you're going to become than what you're going to do, which I thought was so facts.
Because your parents are in ministry, is that right as well?
Somewhat, but not kind of professionally. Okay. Yeah. So they were like really involved in church growing up. But,
did you find that there was much, like, how did you find that?
There was, for me, it was more pressure in like business leadership, because they were, my dad runs a business. And so it was that same sort of pressure of like, oh gosh, what business am I going to lead? Or what am I going to do with my life? And I remember I was working in construction for a year, and my dad, I don't think he was trying to be like unhelpful, but he was like, hey, like, pal, just want to know, like, what are your thoughts on the future? Like, because, I think the Lord probably has more for you than construction. And I was like, wait, what the flip? Like, I kind of vibe with construction. I thought it was awesome.
What were you doing? I was like
building
did
houses.
Construction.
Did you actually?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was just like the bottom. I was the bottom of the pile. Laboring, bags of cement, and then it was during COVID, so like they were like, go paint this house. And
Yeah.
all right. Yeah.
It's so
gonna-
random.
Yeah, it's so random. But it was great fun. Learned a lot.
Like, at what point did you kind of take it on yourself? Because I feel like there's a point when everyone kind of goes from like the expectation that's placed on them to a personal passion. Like, was there a point at which you transitioned from there was that expectation over your future to like, now I know you're highly involved in Alpha.
Yeah.
Was there a point when you just suddenly started being like, oh, I want to share my faith. I want to lead people to Christ. I want to, work in ministry professionally.
Yeah. So I just to preface, like the pressure that I felt to step into that was only put on by myself. Like no one else really around me. Everything that people were sharing about that was all encouragement, and it was all loving and stuff. But it was just something that I just, for whatever reason, decided, right, I've now got this pressure on me. So it was like nothing that my parents did or nothing that any youth pastors or anything did. But I just felt this pressure. And it was tiny, like it was just like a little niggle in the back of my mind, but that can kind of build up if you don't deal with it.
Yeah.
But I always took the stuff that people would say quite seriously. You know, if someone says, "Oh, can you go and do this?" I try and act on it pretty quickly. And so when being encouraged to share my faith or invite friends to church, even from year 7, I remember having there'd be like a youth night on or something, and they'd be saying, invite your friends. So we were going ice skating at the Natural History Museum. They had an ice rink. And then we would head off to like back to the youth room afterwards. And I just remember all my mates from school, like just wrestling, like fighting in this youth room. And literally they still to this day say to me like, oh, do you remember that time we went ice skating and they just like wrestled in this like in your church?
Wait, who was looking after you?
I don't know. Like I can't remember. It was fun. Like it was great. We just, when you pile like bean bags on and you're just like dumping each other and stuff. So that was great fun. I think that was probably the first time I remember inviting someone who didn't go to church normally to church, and then just kind of never stopped. And so there was one time when I was sitting in history. Maybe I just drifting off, but it just felt like a prompting in my head. I wasn't praying or anything particularly, but it just felt like a cool, some words to invite this guy who, had never really like connected with people at school so much. And I gave him a ring, and when I invited him, he said, he thought I was prank calling him. He was like, basically, because no one had ever asked him to hang out outside of.
That's actually really sweet.
Of school or anything. So invited this guy to come and just saw like an amazing change in him. Like he had a fresh start. He was able to make new friends. And that was really powerful and cool. And then just from that, ended up doing Alpha at church because I was attending HGB and they don't stop banging on about it, which is amazing. But I was like, let me go check out like what this thing is.
Valid.
I think I was about 15 probably and I went to the adult Alpha actually. I don't think the youth one was really kicking in the same way that it is now. And I was probably such an annoying kid like in this group. Quite a few years younger than everyone else, and had all the answers, like giving all these church kid answers, and just talking way too much, which is not what you're supposed to do really on Alpha. But they just listened loads, and the food was so good, so I just like kept coming back.
The food is good.
And then I loved it. So I just loved it, and heard this testimony from this guy called Ben Giuliano, who sharing about how he ran Alpha in his school, and just saw amazing change in his school. And I thought, well, if that guy can do it, then I can do it. And so gave it a go.
How did it go? Was it like, how many people came? Because I always picture, if I was to run Alpha in my school, I'm like, I don't think anyone would have come, if I'm being real. But did people actually?
People would come.
I think like looking back on it now, like maybe, probably some people would have come. But at the time, like my parents were, oh, you should run Alpha.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad, no one's coming to Alpha.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, so when I was in year 11, I went to my like a senior member of staff at the school and said, "Can I run Alpha?" And they just said no.
Wow, what?
Wait, what?
They just said no, and I was like, "Okay, cool." So I just waited a year and asked if I could start a Christian union, and they said yes. And so we just ran Alpha in this Christian union. That
Wait,
was all we
that's
did.
so smart.
And yeah, we just like kicked it off. There was a couple of guys who were sort of a bit in and out of church, and there was one few people. This guy who I invited to the youth group, I was like, okay, you're on my team for Alpha, and this other guy who I knew was going to church, you're on my team. And so I just got them together. So this was what we're planning on doing, and then. Because our lunch break was only like, we had half an hour and people then wanted to go and eat food and stuff, I would like cut up the videos in my room and sit like on the Thursday night before Friday and just cut it up and the different sections that I thought, oh, this would be really powerful for people to watch. And then we would just chat about it, and I would go, you know, the Sainsbury's cookies, those like bags of cookies from the bakery.
Oh, they're so
grab a
good.
couple of those before school, chuck them on the table, say who's coming to Alpha, and they'd be like, yeah, I'll come to God Squad. That's what they called it. They just called it God Squad.
Squad.
Yeah, it's amazing. And there was a teacher who was a Christian, the philosophy teacher, and he supported me literally through just running, just unlocking the door to the room, logging onto the laptop, and then letting me do everything. So he was like amazing in the sense that he didn't try and like control anything, but really release us and as a group to do that. And we had about, these are not concrete stats, but I would say we definitely had at least 50% of my year come and do Alpha.
What?
And then we had maybe like an estimate like 85% to 90, like dip into at least like one session or something. So that was just like amazing to see people at lunchtime, you know, coming back from lunch and going, where is everyone? And then people were like, oh, we just been at God Squad, or like they'd just been at Alpha. Having conversations about it. We saw a couple of people get baptized from that, which is amazing. And it was just a great time. And then COVID happened, so we all finished school early. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Picture I'm a 16-year-old, okay? And I want to run Alpha in my school for my friends to know Jesus. What's like your biggest tip for me? Okay.
Like, I think the first thing is pray about it. You know, ask God, is he asking you to do it? You might not hear like an audible yes or like a no, but if you think, I feel passionate about this and I'm feeling prompted to do that, then go for it and make sure God's in that conversation, and then build a bit of a team. So whether that looks like a friend that is curious. You know, they don't even have to necessarily be a Christian, but just saying, hey, look, I'm interested, I want to do this thing. You might be curious. Would you be up for helping me plan it, or gathering some people, or just inviting some friends? And it can start, you can go really, you can start really big, or you could just start really small. It doesn't have to be the next big thing that's happening. Just getting your friends together and talking about faith is such a powerful thing. And you just don't know what God wants to do from that. And so gathering a few people who you think might be passionate about it or interested, and then just meeting, you know.
So valid.
That's what I do.
Wow. What about same question, but I want to start. I want to have a conversation with someone who's curious about faith. So say I'm still 16-year-old Zach. This is my friend 16-year-old Michelle, and 16-year-old Michelle is a little bit curious about faith. Give me your best tip on how do I start to introduce 16-year-old Michelle to Jesus?
Oh, who's Jesus?
Okay. Well done. You're playing your part well.
Are you how curious are you? Like, are you that curious? You're literally coming, or are you just?
I've come. Well, I don't go to church ever. Never been before. My family aren't Christians, but this guy does Alpha. Knows Jesus. Don't know who that is. Like,
sorry, I just love how you just jumped straight into character. Like you just made a whole character. That's awesome. Okay, yeah.
What are you studying at the moment? How's your GCSEs going? Yeah.
Well, you know, maths and English are compulsory.
Yeah, how many siblings do you have? What sports do you play?
No, so like,
I'm curious.
I think the first step is allowing people to know that you're Christian. That has to be the first thing. And so that is the hardest hurdle to get over. And so from the age of year seven, whether that's like 11 or 12, I went to church, and just I wasn't ashamed of it. And so people knew that I was the Christian kid, the vicar's kid. And there were some weird questions that I got asked.
Oh, there always is.
Yeah, like about probably some like inappropriate things, or like people like sort of taking the mick and stuff. But it just never fazed me really, I think. And I just wanted to, like make sure that people knew that I was a Christian, that I went to church, and wasn't ashamed about it. That's by far the biggest hurdle. And if your friends don't know you're a Christian, that can be really hard to then introduce that.
That's so true.
And then I think just sharing about finding time to actually talk to people in depth, rather than just how was your day, how's the homework,
Right.
all of that stuff. And so asking questions around being there for people as a friend, and then you can share your own personal story, which is the most powerful thing that we all hold. We all hold a story, and it says in Acts 1:8, it says, "You will be my witnesses." And it's actually like not everyone is an evangelist specifically, but we can all be witnesses for Jesus.
That's so good.
And like I've heard it said before that it's the word to witness is the word witness in that passage is a proper noun. And so it's not about like you will be a witness at some point, or yesterday, Michelle, you were witnessing, but you are living as a witness for Jesus constantly. And so your story is so powerful to your friends. And I heard this testimony from this guy who was sharing a talk the other day at this massive like Christian conference for students. It was the UCCF like national conference, and he was saying that he became a Christian because his mum prayed for him when he was a kid. The best cricket player at school spoke to him about Jesus for 3 minutes on a coach. He got to university, and there were two guys that he never spoke to that he played football with, who he could tell were Christians by the way that they lived. They never spoke to him. And then there was this couple who invited him to a carol service in his final year of university. He said no to the invitation, and then he came late, left early, and then in that they didn't know that he came. He never saw them. He hid at the back, and he in that night in his room, God met him in his bedroom. And he gave his life to Jesus. Now, other than his mum, none of those people in that story know the impact that they've made on this guy's life. But through living out their faith as a Christian, being a witness to Jesus, living out kingdom values, has impacted this guy. And he's now leading Christians in sport, which is like, helping thousands of people across the country to live out their faith in their sporting world. And so you just don't know the impact that being obedient to what God is calling you into can make. And so if you can step into that, then God will use that tenfold, 20-fold.
Wow.
That's so powerful. And I'm like so encouraged by that. I think a lot of the time we can think, oh, the only way that I can share my faith with somebody is by saying it. Obviously, yes, you can do that, but also it's just by like living your life out and being, like you said, a constant witness to Jesus and his goodness. And like, I'm just curious about, because we know Jack a little bit. You've led Alpha at your school, but then also at uni. Like, can you tell us more about that experience?
Yeah, so after having done it at school and just seeing kind of the change in people's lives, I was like, well, this thing's pretty cool, so let's just keep going with it. And so we had COVID for a couple of years, ran Alpha online, just out of my room with some friends.
Serious?
We had like 2 or 3 groups meeting online, which was really cool. And so, got to university and thought it was a bit of a no-brainer that we try and start Alpha on the campus. And I went to Bath University, and the girl that I went to primary school with was this on the committee in the CU. And so I just gave her a little message and I said, hey, like, I'm coming. Do you think I could like think about running Alpha on campus with you guys? Like, what would that look like? And so by the second term of my first year, we like launched the course on the campus. And there were amazing churches in Bath that were running Alpha at the same time, but what we were trying to bring was a space that we felt was missing, in the sense of a space outside of the church building that was really easily accessible for people to explore faith, in a place where they're constantly curious about loads of things. So you get to university and it's a very captive audience. People are trying new things. They're trying abseiling, they're trying skateboarding, they're trying photography for the first time. Like, why not try Jesus? Give that a go. And so that's what we wanted to create. And that really looked like building a team, again, of people who I thought were passionate about Jesus. Yeah. And once we'd built that team, and we started to see people come, and we saw, maybe the course started with about 25 people or so, which was like, I was pretty happy with.
That's awesome.
Not that it's about the numbers, but it's a good
still
start.
Important, yeah.
And we saw people become Christians. So, this guy became a Christian on that first course. And we then had, actually, one of the girls who did Alpha with me at school was also at uni with me in Bath. And so she didn't become a Christian. She's still not a Christian, but she was living with this girl who's really curious. And she said, well, I've got this friend called Jack, who I went to school with, who runs this like weird Christian thing. You should like go try it out. And so she, a non-Christian, invited her friend that she just met to come and do Alpha on campus. And this girl, she becomes a Christian. And she lives really close to me in London. So she's, we live together in final year. She's now at my church at home. And she's actually at the Alpha on set right now upstairs.
My God.
So she's here. So it's like amazing that the way that God was like threading everything through from what we're doing in school to university. And just to be able to see her now inviting her friends to Alpha. So we'll be at Alpha tonight, and she's brought a couple of her friends along to that. So it's just
that's incredible.
So awesome.
An amazing testimony.
That is so awesome. Wow. That's great. I've heard so many times people that, God uses everything, but sometimes it's still so unexpected.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
For someone who doesn't know Jesus to invite a friend to Alpha to meet Jesus.
I think it's
powerful.
I think it's testament really to the fact that it's like nothing to do with anything I'm doing, basically.
Yeah.
Because I just couldn't orchestrate that as much as I like, even if I tried. And when we ran Alpha when I was there, we ran it 5 times. And what I failed to do at school was to create longevity with the course. We wanted it to be something that when I left university after 3 years, it would be something that would continue to run. And so that it doesn't actually rely on me being there, but actually there's always a space for people to explore faith on campus in Bath. That was what we were trying to do. And so part of that was like the financial side of things. And so we were just praying for some money. And the team that we had built were contributing to the food, and that was great. But for me to be like, hey, Zach, by the way, do you mind like leading Alpha next term? But to let you know, you've got to pay for that as well. Is that cool?
Right.
Like, as a student? So that was a bit of a barrier that I found between this like longevity of what we were trying to do. And so praying for that, we ended up the CU started giving us like £12 a week, which was great, but like not tons of money. That got then taken away a bit. And so I was just like, God, what do you want? If you want me to continue doing this, like how are you going to provide? Like what's the solution to this? And so I was starting my the first term of second year. I was just chatting to my parents, just letting them know like this is like keeping them updated. And they're so amazing. And my mum was just saying, well, why don't you just email the guys at someone at Alpha and see what they say? And I said, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going to do that. They don't care about my little course that's running in Bath. So just that was that. Like I just left it, didn't do anything.
Interesting.
And then 2 months later, in November, just felt prompted one night to email and just said, not like, can we have some money for our little course that's running, but really what's Alpha's strategy for students across the UK? This was in 2023, I think. Oh no, 2020, end of 2022. We're seeing and hearing rumblings of like there's a real openness to people at the moment. What are we doing about it? Are we as Christians an option for people to explore, or are we sitting on the sidelines watching everyone else play ball? And so that was my kind of question to the guys at Alpha, and just got a response the next day saying, thanks so much for your email. It's been forwarded on to head of Alpha UK, Alpha Global, and the vice president of Alpha. And we're just going to, unbeknownst to me, they were chatting. They were at a conference those 2 days. And so at breakfast that next morning, they were chatting about what are we going to do for students? And again, just testament to what God was doing behind the scenes. Like I had no idea that they were there at that conference in that same room together.
Wow.
And sorry.
Go on.
Where's that heading now? Like, because obviously they're filming stuff upstairs. I didn't actually know that there was like I was unaware of like this Alpha in students and universities, colleges ministry.
Yeah.
Where's that heading now?
Yeah. Well, so what happened was that later that day, someone really randomly just sent me £500 and just said, I feel like I need to bless you with this. And so it was like God saying, send that email, kickstart that fire. And then here's the finances that you've been praying for. And so just unlocking that door. And we always say to people, like, be careful what you ask for, especially with, because then the guys at Alpha said to me, like, well, why don't you come and be the person to come and do some of that strategy? Think about what we're going to do for the students. So yeah, to answer your question, in my final year, did some stuff with them part-time, and then tried to resist when finishing uni to go into ministry. But yeah, God was like, no, what are you doing? So yeah, I've been working full time doing that for Alpha, trying to look at how can we support students running Alpha for their friends, churches running Alpha for students, and engaging that. And so in terms of what's really exciting about what they're filming upstairs now is that this is being aimed at that demographic, your 20 to 25-year-old person. So it makes my job really easy because it's going to be amazing for them. And so I'm saying, how do we prepare as a church for this new thing that's going to be purpose built for guys who are so curious about faith?
And what do you think? How should we be preparing as a church? Big C.
Yeah, I think what's happening is amazing, and we don't want to say the R words, renewal, revival, like we'll keep that on the down low. But what's happening, I think, is super encouraging. But I think I just sense it's only a snippet of really what God is wanting to do. And we were at a conference over summer, and talking, and as a church as well, we've been talking about Elisha in 2 Kings, when it's a widow who is got this debt that she needs to pay back, and she's like, I don't know how I'm gonna pay this debt back. And it's like, have you got anything in your house? And so she's got this jar with a little bit of oil in it. And so I think it's Elijah says to her, well, go and gather loads of jars, go and borrow loads of jars from people in the neighboring towns. And so she goes and gathers and gathers and gathers. And then as she pours the oil out, it just keeps running. It just keeps running. And we were saying that her faith is directly proportional to the amount of jars that she collected. If she had low faith, she would have only gathered a few jars. But if she had high faith, she would have gathered more jars. Because I don't believe that God would have stopped pouring out that oil if she had more jars to fill. Right. And so as a church, big C, like church in England, whatever denomination that is, whatever network, whatever group, how are we preparing enough jars for the people that God is wanting to bring into the church? I live in a borough in London called Wandsworth, and there's 380,000. Yeah, come on, Wandsworth. Yeah. There's 3.
He goes so
we live in the same area. It's just awesome.
That's good. I never see you. Oh, I saw you once on the way to work. Yeah, that was funny.
It was funny.
Yeah. But there's 380,000 people alone in Wandsworth, and it's like I go to a relatively like medium-sized church, and I was saying some of the guys there, 380,000 people. If we had 100 people turn up to church on a Sunday, like we wouldn't know what to do with them. We wouldn't know
Dang.
where, we wouldn't have the connect groups to put them in. We wouldn't have enough alpha leaders to bring them into. We wouldn't know how to help disciple them. And so that's such a minute fraction of the number of people that can come. And so I think actually this slow revival, this slow awakening that's being spoken about is the kindness of God helping us as a church to prepare for the outpouring that he wants to bring. And so, I chat to people across the country around doing alpha and students and stuff. And some people will respond to me saying, oh, we're just not really a student church. Like, we don't really do students. And, there's nothing directly wrong with that. But it does make me feel sad because I was chatting to this amazing guy in Bristol, amazing church leader, really faithful, just really, you could say, like, really loves Jesus so much. And he was saying, we're not really a student church. And but I was explaining to him, there's 2 massive universities in Bristol. There's about 30,000 students there. And the biggest student church in Bristol has only 100 to 200 students meeting regularly there. So it's like there's this huge gap of people that we're missing out on. And actually, he was telling me that, excitingly, he's seen 5 students just rock up to his church, totally unchurched, randomly, curious about it. And so how can we help everyone get prepared for when people start to just walk into our doors? I was meeting with a guy in Sheffield, and he was telling me this story about this girl who would pray to God, but she didn't actually pray. She just thought it was a one-way. She was speaking at God, and then she felt one night that God responded to her. She said, I thought this was a one-way thing. Like, why are you responding to me? And so God's saying to her, can I ask you a question? And she was like, sure, like, I guess. And God's like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? And she says, yeah. And then God's like, are you sure? And then she falls asleep. And so as she's asleep, she has this dream, and it's basically God gives her the option, heaven or hell. It's like, make a choice. Don't sit on the fence. I'm revealing myself to you. Make a decision. And so she wakes up totally freaked out, calls her only Christian friend and says, what do I do? And so her Christian friend starts helping her read through the Bible, reading through the Gospels and reading through the New Testament on Zoom. And as she is reading through it, she's reading about baptism. And she's saying, well, I think I need to get baptized. And so she's like, I don't know how to do that. Like, where do I even start? And she's like walking along the street one day and just sees, like, on the side of the road, Baptist church. So she just walks in. I reckon they do baptism. So she literally walks into the church, says, do you guys do baptism? And they're like, yeah. And so they baptized her on Easter Sunday this year. And it's like, how do we as a church, Big C, nationally, prepare for these people where God is going out and he's meeting with them in dreams, through their friends, and prepared to welcome them into our building.
He's so doing something, and it's so exciting to be a part of it. And I think I'm honored to be here with Alpha, because I think Alpha plays a huge role in that.
It does,
and it creates a huge opportunity.
It bridges that gap for sure.
For sure. But hey, Jack, we've loved hearing your story, and we appreciate everything you've shared. And bro, may the Lord be with you and walk alongside you. And hey, if you're curious, you've been watching this and you're just kind of like wondering about all of these things as well, I want to point you to, you could try Alpha yourself in a church near you, or just like Jack was saying, message your closest Christian friend and just ask them, hey, what's all this Jesus stuff about? But for now, thank you so much for listening, watching, and drop a comment on this little series. We're doing Alpha question marks. So drop a question mark in the chat, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching The Way. It's been awesome. Bye for now.
Bye.